We are unmuted for the record.
Call the meeting to order at 6:05. Y'all are gonna have to in between for my long pauses, and I will try to take minutes.
Would you like me to, Bob?
If you could,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah. Give me 1 second to get set up here.
Thank you.
No problem. Just use the secretary for the Aldrich Library too. So
Are you all right?
I've been taking minutes all afternoon. All right.
So the second item on the agenda is to consider approval or any adjustments to it. Nothing, then I would ask for a motion to approve. Motion to second. All those in favor? Then we have the consider to approve the previous meeting minutes. Bring a copy of them with me, but they were distributed. Is there any discussion about the previous meeting minutes? I would ask for a motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep. Okay. Council, you said we don't have any guests online. You're up.
All right. Sorry. I don't think I have anything major to report that the chief won't touch on himself. Our new city manager is continuing to settle in. Former city manager Mackenzie has now transitioned off. So that has taken place. I've heard good things about Nicholas from various members of the community. And I had a lunch meeting with him on a couple days ago, and he spoke very highly of the chief and everything that he's been doing. So that was great to hear as well. Yeah, I don't think anything, we updated about the cruisers and ammo last meeting, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. So I think that was the last big piece of PD business that we did on the council level.
Yeah,
if I'm remembering.
we did the consoles too, the radio consoles.
Yep. Yep.
And the workstations are going.
The one question I did have, Chief, is just if you had an update on the body camera grants. I was asked about it the other day and I realized
so
I didn't know.
The first grant, it was very competitive, and usually those grants are the ones that go to like Minneapolis and so we were unsuccessful in that. There are some more micro grant opportunities coming up in December. You will see it. I did put it in the budget because I'm adamant that so, I'm hoping to get one.
Yep, and just from, I've had informal conversations with other members of council and they seem to be supportive of the body cameras. But both on behalf of this board, but also myself personally as a counselor, it's also a #1 priority for me too, to see those through to the budget, through the budget process.
It's a significant tool.
Yeah.
Assists.
Yeah,
liability-wise.
and I think it is one of those things too, at least what I've heard from my constituents. Ward 2 has very conservative folks in it and very progressive folks in it. It seems to be something that the entire community can get behind and think it's a good idea. So I think that's important as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So any questions for Teddy? You, Chief?
All right. So last week we did oral boards. Abby was on them. It was the new process that I put in place with the, it's a validated process with questions from post. Police officers, police officer standards and training, that everybody gets treated equally, that, you have to be asked the same question. It's the same scoring criteria. Abby can attest to that.
Yeah.
Going over the whole scoring criteria with them. And the system works that, you folks had some good candidates and some bad candidates that came through and the system works. Everybody was asked the same questions in the same manner and the scoring with all the folks on the panel was relatively in sync with each other.
It was completely the same, very good.
We had Sergeant Tucker, Corporal Fry, Gary Gordon from Washington County Mental Health, and Abby from the back. And at least 3 of the candidates out of the 4 can be considered. The 4th one didn't do so good, and like I said, the system works. So looking forward to that, moving them on to the next phase of the process, which is the background investigation, which you'll see in the policies here, the background recruitment selection, how that works. You'll also notice that the policy format has changed. And the reason for that is we got Power DMS.
Okay, yeah, I
We
noticed
were
that.
talking about that, one of the first
Yeah.
PAC committees here, meetings that we had. Policy time system crashed and it's no longer supported, so
Jeez.
they gave us a refund for what was a little bit was left on our thing, so we moved ahead with Power DMS. And you'll
It's a much, I think it's a much cleaner
Yeah.
format.
And I
Yeah.
can explain that as we go. I heard a lot of comments about even from the labor attorney that was vetting some of the policies. Scott Cameron, he looked at it, and just agrees, and I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
So this is the format that I'm used to, and I like, I'll explain it as we go, that there's indexing features, and Power DMS, the folks love it, it's just so much easier. One of the things also on Power DMS, Rick Taft with the city had sat in on the demos as well, and he may be interested in rolling it out citywide.
That was gonna be my question,
Right,
was whether it was just PD or was it?
Well, right now it's just PD, but we can add more licenses. And one of the things you can do is there's a workflow process. So we wouldn't even have to print policies out. You can sign in at any time and write comments in and just send the policies through a workflow. And then once they're, approved, you can publish them type thing. So, obviously it would still go through this group, but it would just be electronically where you wouldn't have to, necessarily, if you wanted to, somebody wasn't here and they wanted to add some comments, they could add some comments.
Yeah.
So that's another
Right.
another good thing about that. We had our 2 interns that have started from Norwich University for the fall semester. They've been with us about a week now. Jack LePage and Tyler. They're both criminal justice majors. One's a senior, the other is a sophomore, I believe there. One of the projects that I'm going to have them work on while they're here is doing based on what they're seeing, the questions to ask. What the mediums to best reach the public with that, we're going to be putting that out. And lastly, Montpelier has got a grant for, there's a managing bias training pilot. So currently we have, we always have to have bias-free policing training so many years, every other year that we have it, part of our Rule 13 requirements. They got a grant, they're part of this pilot program that's going to be doing it nationwide, trying to get the training all the same for the country. They have 4 or 25 slots we're going to fill, so they're going to put some folks into them. We're going to put some of our staff in it, and some other agencies in Washington County will be putting some folks.
I'm sorry, to conduct a training on.
Managing bias, it's bias-free policing, fair and impartial policing.
Is this like a train the trainer kind of thing?
I'm not sure what that is. I think it's a pilot to see, they're gonna be creating the program based on the officers that are going through this nationwide. And thankfully, Chief Pete, got on board and was able to get that so we can partake in that. So I don't think it's a train the trainer, only because
It's an initial.
it's an initial pilot to see what the outcome will be for the actual course that comes out.
Great. Nice to have some input into that.
Absolutely.
That's great. What else? Anything?
Oh, that's it. A lot going on.
Yep. So, how has the, I can't remember what it's called, but the schools, we talked about mapping and
Yep, that's
all of
going well.
that. I know you were planning on having meetings.
Yep, we're doing monthly meetings. We haven't had one yet in September because they had the school start, so we're letting them get into that process. Should be there within a week or two. Well, in those meetings, did we talk about the child protection team and all the things that we're gonna set up? I'm not sure if
I don't
mentioned it.
recall.
Recall that, no.
So one of the things I want to set up there is a child protection team, which would essentially have someone from the police, someone from DCF, someone from Circle, administration from the school, all the social service agencies represented. Basically, take those students that are recognized in the most need, either behaviorally or, just to get them on the radar, so we will be able to discuss those individuals in the meetings and be able to get them the services that they need to help them. There's a great need there, and this will probably be long, so we're gonna put parameters. We've been working on parameters on how to whittle it down to who's in the most need. So we're working on that. We're also working on, they've recognized that what's going on the school board, and those types of things, they've recognized that they need interaction and community support. So I suggested, where I had come from, we had what was called the Hartford Community Coalition. It was formed, unfortunately, it was formed out of 3 teen suicides that happened close together. But it basically got schools and the community all together and themselves in the community and held community forums and discussed a lot of issues, like stigma around mental health, those types of issues. And so they're very receptive and want to do something like that. So I've invited some folks up that initially started HCC, and they're going to do some presentations up here with the school administration and staff. So to form something like that.
So who will be identifying the kids that are most in need? Is it the administration, or will
Yeah,
it be
well,
the teachers, or this
Yeah,
group is what
Well,
you're?
it'll be them
Yeah.
that are recognizing them to bring them forth into this group to discuss, how best to suit their needs.
Yeah. Particularly, I think, with all that's gone on across the country, and it's not that the schools, I mean, in some respects, it feels like they are on lockdown in a pretty consistent basis. So I think some of that community connection is lost because of that.
There was actually a book that has the same title, but the schools can't do it. And that, if they don't interact with the community, have that support with the community, things can go sideways.
There
That's
are a
great.
lot of different groups that exist for different things. Like there is a organization Thrive that it touches on, it's all ages and populations, and it has at the table. There's also this other group that primarily works with children, and it's like all the DCF, WIC, all those that come together. So I'm just wondering if it has to be another one, or if it's something that can connect with, because
They
Because
they
they all
could connect,
feed
but this is kind of like putting not so much as well, you're getting them the services they need, but it's also recognizing, some that have like criminal tendencies, as well as,
Right.
folks that have behavioral issues, and coming together to have that protection of them, if you will. So it's along the same lines, but
Yeah.
And there may be some intersecting.
yeah, we have a lot of groups groups that actually, because I think of, when I think of all the things we're trying to do, I think of duplication because everything costs money.
Absolutely.
So, and there's not enough money inevitably, so that's why I say that out loud, because there is a lot of overlap. I mean, it was prevalent with COVID, where this group drive kind of set up this whole thing. And it was
So,
entirely
yep.
so it,
Good to know. I will discuss that with the school and see if there is, if there is too much overlap, what we can do there and
yeah,
try to combine.
It's good to have Bruce looking out for kids.
Yeah.
You need it.
Starts with the kids.
Yeah. Anything else for the chief before we move on? So we had, I guess I'll say tacitly approved the ride-along policy, but we had not officially approved it. So unless there's any other questions, I guess I would look for a motion to approve what was the amended ride-along policy, not the originally presented one.
Motion to.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
right.
It's unanimous. Ride-along policy is officially official. So next is one of the new policies, which is the recruitment selection policy. Recruitment and selection. I guess I had that wrong on my census there. So I guess I'll start with you. If you have anything on page 1, since you're taking notes, give you the opportunity to weigh in.
No.
Your Abby, do you guys have anything on page 1? The only question that I had, you guys are shocked that I have questions.
No.
Is when would this go to an applicant? Would it be, would this be the, I'm sorry, this isn't the application, sorry. I've got a note here that says, when would the officer be given this?
So
Talks
this,
about all the different things, so the minimum qualifications. So for them to know that and to understand that, when would an applicant see that? Would it be with the
it
application?
would be with the application.
It would be, okay.
This just outlines the steps in the process, pretty much.
Yep.
So like, it's also posted on our website. You see the minimum qualifications. You click on the link, you download your application, you fill out your application. Then it follows this process. There are some things that would say with the application, gee, we recognize that you're not going to be selected just based on the initial screening. Then once you get selected, you would go through the oral panel process. Then you'd fill out your personal history questionnaire, the confidential questionnaire, which I did get a message. I printed out a bunch. You'd enter the background phase. In the background phase, they do the in-depth background, which is explained in background investigations. And you take your polygraph and you just cycle through the process. So this outlines.
Okay.
I thought the whole interview, I'm sorry, I'm probably getting. The whole interview process of like the neighbors and families and all that was interesting. How do you distill through? Do you have set question? I mean, how do you
Yeah,
distill through that?
Yeah, and you'll see in the personal history questionnaire,
Okay,
they have a bunch of questions that they ask that the detectives that do the background investigations have a certain amount of questions. Have there been any problems? Do they have parties? Do they cause noise? There's, they're basically looking at their moral character, if they're a problematic individual.
That was one of the questions that I had about the reference investigators, and I didn't see,
Yeah,
you
it's
mentioned
detective.
detectives, yeah.
And
I saw
the
deputy
reason-
chief mentioned once or twice, but
The reason it's listed as investigators, because there may be certain circumstances, say the detectives don't have the time, there's a lot going on or whatever, where we could parse it out to an investigator. And that's why it's left as investigators.
moving over to page 2. I just had a quick question. It says the selection process, .6, I think, the top of page 2,
Yes,
techniques, and then is selection, should it be capitalized as part of the selection, or should it be lowercase?
it can,
Is it, I guess what I'm asking, is it selection process or
no,
selection
it's just a
process?
selection
Sorry, but where are you
process.
looking?
So they, up on paragraph B, the 6th dot down. the selection
here.
That one,
process.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anybody that's assigned to this function should be aware of this process. So
Page 3, anybody have anything on page 3? Page 4. Anything there? So at the top, you talk about solicitation of applications,
Mhm.
talk about job vacancy announcements and recruitment notices. I'm assuming there must be some kind of CBA requirements for that. Is it necessary for that to be listed here, or is this just, this would not be an application for someone to move within the department? So it wouldn't matter at
yeah,
that
this
point?
this is only for new
New
applicants.
applicants, okay, just want to make
Um,
sure I got that right.
And you'll see as this goes on that, applications, even if we don't have vacancies, people are welcome to apply. We'll keep those on file for a year. And they can continue to reapply after that. So if a vacancy does come up, we'll have that ability to go back to send them a notice and say, you're still interested, we're doing all panels.
Under step 2, the initial screening, it referred to a questionnaire, and I asked the chief to provide us with a copy of that tonight, just to look it over.
So this is the personal history questionnaire, which
Oh my
goes-
gosh,
this goes.
this is gonna be a couple, 3 pages. I guess it's gonna be a little
No,
more than that.
this is in depth, and this is the basis for the background investigation, where you pretty much have to give away your life history so that investigators can delve into your background.
And is this, does this come, like, is this something that the VSA puts out, state police put out, or VSP put out, or?
Every agency uses personal history questionnaires that ask very similar questions. It's not a standardized form among each agency in the state that uses the same. one.
Okay, that's
But
where
they're
I
all the
was getting
same questions.
Okay.
Crimes, list relatives, list, spouses, list. That is the basis for that.
These are all the articles that on the panel.
Those are, no, you didn't see all of those.
No,
That
well,
was,
that's why I was like,
there was some similar to that in the application, but that's some more in the personal history questionnaire. So the ones that passed the oil board that you were in, will
Yeah.
get this.
Okay,
They will get
okay.
this, and then as they enter the background. It's like, congratulations, you passed your oil panel. Please fill this out and return it. You're in.
Step 2, okay.
And based on, I'm assuming hung up, where this is I was gonna say the labor attorneys looked at this, but it wouldn't apply at that point because they're still in the pre.
Mhm.
Okay. Sorry, I may keep fumbling over that, chief, bear with me.
I have a quick question about, is there a reason that it's do not type, everything must be in your own legible handwriting for the question. I'm more just curious than
Because
anything.
they want to see. What the handwriting.
It's like, just looking for handwriting. I was just curious.
And truth be told, most cops have horrible handwriting, so that's not like. "Oh, you
Cops,
have horrible
doctors.
handwriting, You're
You're
disqualified.
Retailers.
Counselors, you know.
Doctor.
Under 3, those applicants presently certified by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council as level 3 are exempt from the selection testing process. Because they've already done this somewhere else. Okay, that's why, okay. And then at the bottom, the very last sentence, selection testing at the Vermont Police Academy was scheduled by the department for section testing. Is section testing right, or should it be selection?
Sorry, where is it?
Are we on page 4?
Yeah, very bottom of page 4. The last sentence is scheduled by the department for section testing.
Law enforcement applications, no. Yeah, I think we're,
That should be selection testing.
Oh, gotcha.
So the
I think it's
police
different in here.
academy. The police academy
it's
has,
different.
you have to go down to
Oh,
the
it's
police
different.
academy.
I don't have that
It's
one.
Oh,
actually
you see, so
top-
it's the,
It's the
it's,
top of page 5,
Yeah.
but it starts at the bottom. So if you're not certified already, you have to go down to the police academy. You have to do physical agility tests.
sorry, I'm very there, so, sorry. So step 3, section testing, right? That's the same
Selection
thing,
testing, yeah.
Then there's that.
For selection or it says section.
Okay,
So
I see
it's,
it.
yours is on the next page. It says section testing instead of
Oh,
selection.
there's, the see, okay.
I know I went over that.
I was like, I don't see it.
I
Okay,
don't know,
okay.
I must have done something to get it
Yeah,
printed.
that's
so
No,
prints
no,
to be
you're
sele-
fine, you're
selection
fine.
testing.
Okay,
Good catch.
I highlighted something right here. Didn't even-
Saving it for later.
so that's page 4. Anything else on page 4 or my page 4, that page under step number 3, selection testing.
Oh, just one thing on page 4, take it or leave it. When you do posting solicitation of applicants, right at the top of page 4, step 1, all of the things that you'll include. Entrance salary, I just like a lot of people my age are also looking for like what the leave policy is, like how much. So that like might, in your mind, that might be included in that bundle. I
I
just,
got Rick Taft working on that.
Okay,
I've asked him, because I usually include that in the application and it
Yeah.
will become part of the application. He was working on that, and I know that's on he and Nicholas's radar for that as well as the personnel handbook, but all the benefit summary
Great.
is usually included in the application. And when I redid the application here, he didn't have that ready, so
okay, cool,
it will make it in there.
great, thank you.
Catch counselor.
Because you are right, people want to know, wow, hey.
Yeah, pay me what you want. What's the health insurance and vacation?
What's
time?
the money?
Yeah, right.
Particularly right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And particularly as an officer or potential officer, because everybody's doing something right now.
Yep.
So going to, since we're not the page, I shouldn't use page numbers now, so we'll go to D, step number 4. Is there anything in panel interview? Letter E, step 5.
And is, sorry, the background am I following that the background investigation is partially based off of their answers in here?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the basis of it. So, what you say here,
Mhm.
they start asking questions and get the information to go interview those people. So that's the basis.
Under F, I had a couple things here on F, G, and L where it looks like you must have copy and pasted somewhere, Chief. It's different font. At least it is on mine.
It's not on this one.
No, I don't mind. Not mine either. Didn't you have this problem once before? Yours was different. Than everybody else's?
Or no?
From step 6 polygraph exam.
Poor Bob.
See how the font here is different than it is here?
There
and
was
here
a
and
section
here?
that was different in a different place, but I can't remember if it
Yeah,
was this one.
Interesting, it didn't do that here. It's all times Roman 12.
All right.
Comic Sans.
Nothing wrong with Comic Sans.
Comic Sans 12. Times Roman.
Okay, now we got that put away. So that was F. G. Letter H, step 8, psychological screening, which answered all the questions that I had earlier in the document about screening, psychological screening. Disqualification of applicants. And I'm assuming that are some of these disqualifications, are they some kind of statute like the high school graduate?
Yes.
Okay.
In order to get into the police academy, they require either a diploma or a GED.
Okay,
They have certain standards.
I understand that.
Can I ask a question generally about this whole section, or do you want to go bullet point? by
No,
bullet?
go ahead.
Would it be covered if there were prior misconduct for an officer, or an officer had a Brady Giglio letter or anything like that? Would that, when does the department receive that information? Does the department?
That would
receive
come
that
up in their
information?
background investigation.
Okay.
There's also.
Because there's the question about have you ever been like fired or?
There's a waiver, and you'll see under Act 56. I think it's, actually, I think it's the last page of their personal history questionnaire. Yeah, page 14 is a waiver. And you see where it says pursuant to 20 VSA 2362A,
Mhm.
the potential hiring agency cannot hire an officer that refuses to execute this written waiver. That is for that reason, because it used to be, as unfortunate as it was, you could go and say, hey, I'm being fired, and they get themselves an attorney and they say, you can only tell the person
Right.
asking that you worked here.
Right, right.
Well, that does no good in the law enforcement world, but people were skating through and people were hiring other people's problems.
Yeah,
So
because there was that Brattleboro to St. Albans. Was that the example?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. So they
okay.
came out with, thankfully, they came out with Act 56. And if you don't sign that,
Okay,
you
good.
can't even be hired.
Okay,
Because that allows the chief or the sheriff or whoever, where they work, that gives them carte blanche. They have to tell you everything.
Right.
Whether they were internal investigation, all of that.
Great.
So that takes care of all.
But that just covers other police departments. But what about like regular? police? That's a question about in the next one's background.
That, again, that comes out in the background, but if they say, oh, the person was great and they weren't,
If the previous employer lies, basically, yeah.
it doesn't, Act 56 doesn't cover that. But they should group that out in the background investigation. At least I would hope.
is there a?
Well, I mean, a lot of employers only give,
Because they're
years of
afraid,
employment
yeah,
and
they're afraid of being sued.
Right.
Unfortunately, it doesn't cover that. It only covers law enforcement agencies for that.
Yeah.
And it says, fill in the name of your current law enforcement employer, or if not currently employed, the last law enforcement agency that employed you. So if someone went from, just gonna make up a situation, Springfield to Brattleboro, and then up to St. Albans before 20 VSA kicked in. Like if they did something that should disqualify them, in my opinion, as an officer 15 years ago, 3 agencies ago, does the department have a way to find that?
Yes, because that's where that's covered in there. It says the last agency that employed you. If not currently employed.
Well, right, but what if something happened? What if this, when we hired you, we saw many applicants that had gone through literally 5 to 10 departments in the course of 15 years. So if something disqualifying happened 3 departments ago, is there a way for the police department?
Well, that would come
for us
out,
to find
that would come out in the
in
background.
the greater background
investigation.
check? Okay, so I'm just making sure that we're able to find this information before it kicks us in the
and
ass.
it crosses state lines.
Act 56 does
No.
not cross state lines.
No, that's the biggest, yeah.
But it, again, those, if you have a problematic employee that from another law enforcement agency, that'll come out. This just compels them to not be passionate, for lack of a better term, passive.
So how does that affect, and we discussed this previously, you have a personnel file and the bargaining agreement says that, medium slaps on the wrist disappear after 3 years. So then you hire somebody
Personnel.
10 years.
It comes out of the personnel file. It's coming out of the internal affairs.
And the internal affairs file is covered in.
Because I think I have that question somewhere in the background too, but I was just thinking about that as the counselor was talking about that.
Do you remember the internal affairs things that said the
Mhm.
internal affairs file with the internal affairs log?
Right.
That stays.
That's
But like the JOR,
The job observation
yes.
report.
so
That is just for performance evaluations on a yearly basis. Counseling.
what if this person has to be performance counseled almost every year in some respect?
Then it would rise up to the next level through progressive.
So we were,
Oh,
We
we
just
finished up the
finished.
screenings.
yep,
Around the disqualification of applicants. Yeah, no
so
questions.
under HIJKL, I think there's probably supposed to be, this is under 5, the disqualification. I'm assuming there's supposed to be a slash between 2100 and 2020. And maybe your copies have that, mine doesn't.
There's a slash there, 20-100, 20-20.
I don't know why.
Are
Because mine
you-
just
Are you
says,
printing these from PDF or Word? How are you printing these off when you print them?
you send them to me and I send them to my printer. I've got
From-
Adobe,
From the Word file, yeah.
yeah, and I've got Adobe, I've got Word, so very
That's weird.
strange,
So
very, very strange.
I had a question. It says all law enforcement applicants must meet the minimum standards for drug use as established and amended by the Vermont Criminal Justice. What's the minimum standard?
So basically, if you have smoked pot and it was a while ago, they're not gonna say, oh, you're disqualified totally. If you're a heavy cocaine user and you use LSD, you're not gonna make it
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
So minimal.
That's the one he sent me, and there's nothing in between there. That is so
That's true.
weird.
That's true, Bob. You're not going crazy.
Okay,
See,
well,
there's
you
my
know,
dash and there's my
that's
dash. And that's what you sent me.
What? That's the one I sent you.
Yeah, no,
Which
that's.
is-
it-
This is where I just downloaded them and forwarded them. That is so weird. Anyway,
Computer.
By MacBooks.
So next would be 6 reapplications. Anything there? 7 security and disposition of records. And then cancellation is nothing. So we had one typo. Did we-
Selection and section.
Yeah. And we had questions, but I don't think we had any substantive changes at all,
No.
except for the weird font on Bob's copy. Then I guess I would ask for somebody to make a motion that we approve that with that one minor grammatical change.
I make a motion to approve that.
right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of approval of the recruitment and selection? Is a policy, chief?
Yes.
Policy. Say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Unanimous. We'll move on to the background investigations. Anything, my first page goes down to number 2, assignment, background investigation would be number 2. Is there any questions there? Moving on, A, records and documentation. Just notice that there's an asterisk there, chief, but it doesn't reference anything.
The fingerprint card,
Fingerprint.
Yeah,
yeah, asterisk not supposed to be there.
okay. Letter B, methods of inquiry.
Sorry, unique circumstances, would that be someone would be injured and methods of inquiry? While it's more appropriate to conduct inquiries in person, unique circumstances. Telephone available.
So hypothetically speaking, if you, were a Bobby over in London, and you're coming over here to apply, we can't afford to send somebody over there. And it's happened before because we've hired out of country applicants.
Oh, wow.
All throughout the state, there's country applicants.
Would be shocked from here to there.
So that would be a unique circumstance, you know, if somebody lives too far away, which, you know, we can't find somebody to do it out there. We may do telephone.
What about web-based? Is there any reason to put that in there?
That's-
Zoom, if you're interviewing family members, you can see them and their responses. Is there any
Yeah, we
reason
could
to
have
add?
that. We could have that.
It's the world of Zoom and Google
I
Meet
know.
and
Oh, God, yeah.
I think
Teams.
what takes me out is all that
Telephone, mail, or
artificial
web.
intelligence.
They're gonna take over AI. They've already got AI as a sentient being.
Telephone, mail, and web inquiries, right?
Change. Do like a IE Zoom.
Yep.
Google Meet, et
Teams,
cetera,
yeah.
in parentheses.
So I'm so sorry, I was formatting the minutes. Where did you just add that?
B,
Under-
method of inquiries, first paragraph,
Thank you.
second sentence.
Through telephone, mail, and
And web inquiries. Anything else under B? C, fingerprints. I had a question on the second bullet point. It talks about the authorization certificate will be mailed.
Mhm.
Do we still mail those things, or are they, is there,
We still have to
still has to physically mail it? Okay. Even though I saw somewhere here that it's done via, that's the certificate. Somewhere I saw with fingerprinting that it's not the old ink anymore, isn't it?
Correct, it's
Yeah.
APHIS, it automatically gets submitted up to BCIC. We have a certificate that they have to sign when they get fingerprinted, and that's the original that has to go up there.
Okay.
And that's why it gets mailed.
Okay.
The only folks that get inked ironically are doctors. And there's something else, there's another category of folks that they have to do an ink, FBI background.
Really? Hmm, that's interesting.
I think the last time,
When I was down in Hartford, all the folks from the VA were like, I need ink.
the last time I did my firearms license, I think it was him. Last time I had to do the big one, when I redo it, I don't have to, but every
Hopefully they changed
8
it,
or 10 years. yeah.
because I mean, the ink is massive. And the other one captures your register perfectly. So, I don't know why it's up.
D, incoming documentation. It doesn't say who's going to review it. Does it need to? All correspondence shall be reviewed.
At the end, I review it.
Okay. And the investigations, that was like in another place, that's where there would be the detectives in theory.
Yep.
Because I had a question, who's gonna update you?
Yep.
Okay. Section 3, interviews. Letter A. Question, verbal or written. The investigator shall submit the completed waiver and authorization for disclosures to the applicant's current and or former law enforcement agency. In addition to notarized. I guess the question was when the response from the other enforcement agency, I guess I was curious whether it's verbal or whether it's written. Is it email?
For where are we?
We're still under
We're still under.
interviews, yeah, and it's the 1, 2, 3, the third bullet point, investigators shall submit the completed waiver.
Authorization for disclosures to the applicant's current and
And I guess it was more curious than anything. When they respond, is that something that's done in writing,
Oh,
the other law enforcement agency, or is that where the chief picks up the phone and calls you and says?
it could be either, but you know, if they interview them, you know, they're taking notes as they're speaking to them, or they could just give a written document saying, you know, if they so choose to.
Okay.
How long does this whole process take?
For a background?
No, from when somebody applies to potentially when they're offered a job. It seems like this
Yeah,
is
it
a
could-
lot of work.
Yeah, it is, but you know.
Yeah,
don't
I
want the wrong
understand
person.
why. No, I understand
It takes,
why, but
it
I'm
generally
just-
takes about 2 months.
Yeah,
You know, and then the issue becomes, they only offer full-time academies twice a year.
right.
So like right now, we just had the oral process. We have a deadline to get paperwork into the academy to get them into the February class that will be coming
Okay.
out. So we have those deadlines that we have to make, so you plan around that. And from start to finish of hiring to being on the road by yourself is 9 months.
Yeah.
After you make through the academy and everything, so it's pretty much a 12-month process to get a police officer. Unless, of course, they're already certified, then it's.
Letter B, neighbors. Letter C, relatives. Letter D, personal. E, schools. F. G. H. I. I had a question there about clarification, but as I reread it, I think I've got it. I don't know about the National Decertification Database, but I don't think for this process, it's important for
So
me to
there
know
is a
about it.
national decertification base that lists officers, if you get decertified, say in the state of Vermont, if you go before the council and they deemed your behavior was something that could get decertified, they pull your certification, and you can no longer be a police officer in the state of Vermont, you get listed in the database. Everybody in the states partakes in that database, so if you get decertified, you can't say, well, I'm gonna go to Arizona and I'll find out what
Right.
happened in Vermont.
Good.
Section 4, written summaries.
disparity around military personnel.
Yes.
So if they're like discharged for a reason.
Dishonorable.
Does that disqualify them for, is that listed? Okay.
And people, it's also listed in there. And that's why even if they don't say they're in the military, we check that database.
Right.
Because if you
yes,
got dishonorably discharged and you come in here and say, I was never in the military, and you say, well, he said he wasn't, or she said she wasn't, so I'm not gonna check,
Right,
then they never know. So you have to check that database. And then obviously there's 2 disqualifications there because they lied on their application. And, you know, there's a reason why they didn't tell you they were in the
Yeah.
military.
okay.
So 4 written summaries, there was nothing there. 5 applicant file. So I just had a question again. I don't think it's really has anything to do with this, but if I were to apply and the background investigation came back, can I request a copy of that since it's pertinent to me as the applicant? And is that made clear, like on the application to?
It is.
6, rejection and termination. 7, other considerations. 8, records.
Can I just have I just have to processing this. Sorry. So that whole requesting a copy of the background stuff, so what if somebody doesn't make it through the background, then say one of the interviews or some of the interviews were concerning, can they still request that information?
We can still request it.
Really?
Again, it goes through the process. We don't have to release it. If they can request it, and we can redact things.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
they were talking about
if-
ex-wives and
Right,
neighbors,
right,
and that's why, I had one of the reasons I
Yeah, no,
asked.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we would, you know, obviously, we would look at that. We would release something,
Right,
you know, put a neighbor in peril for saying this
Right.
guy's
Mhm.
doing a job.
right,
And the other piece of that is that the neighbor or the ex could lie too, and that was the other side, the flip
That's the
side of
other
that
side.
is
Yeah.
they can say, well, there's no reason that I should be rejected for this, and
Right.
you
And
know,
then all of a sudden you find out that somebody's out there spreading
right,
right.
things of libel. and-
give you an opportunity to face your
Yep.
accuser. The only other question I had, if you're set, Sandy,
Yes, I am, thank you.
is again, curiosity thing, just for the knowledge of being on the committee, talks about human resources administrator. Does BCPD have someone in that, or would that be like
That's Rick
Rick? Yeah,
Kemp.
that would be, okay, would be, Rick. So oversees the whole city.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of assumed that, but wasn't sure. Okay, so we had a couple of typos. We had the addition of the web-based
Yep.
interviews. In my mind, those aren't substantial enough for us to not move this forward. Counselor,
Nope, I'm
your
good.
opinion?
You're good.
So I would look for a motion to approve the background investigations policy.
Motion approved.
Okay.
I can't make motions, but
Yes, and I feel awkward doing it as chair, so the two of you get to do it. So any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the background investigations policy, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous.
can't vote either. But
Like hearing your voice.
Absolutely, Teddy.
thanks, friends.
Okay, performance monitoring system. is next. And
I have a question completely unrelated to the subject of the policy. How are you deciding the numbers on the policy, different
You'll see that
subjects?
in the written directive system.
Oh, well,
Policy.
God love you, chief.
He's on the ball, buddy.
mhm. Is there anything down through number one, contents? I did go through most of these and make sure that the content numbers, I should know by now, I don't have to check on the chief, but I do it. We'll start with system description. And we've gone through how long each of those stay in the files. And I'm assuming, again, that anything that might have to be looked at as part of the CBA has been done, right?
Yes.
Fair assumption?
So what this whole policy is designed to recognize a problem before it becomes a problem. So hypothetically speaking, if you come in late and you get one of those job observation reports because you've come in late for 2 days in a row, and they say, look, what's going on? They give you a job observation report. Then we notice that, you got a complaint made against you for being rude to the public, the very next day. Something's going on with you. So this is designed to nip the problem in the butt before it becomes a discipline problem and you have a problematic employee. It actually works in their benefit, the folks in the union.
So that goes to number 2, request to initiate performance monitoring system.
Grammatic question. Under B, the first bullet point, I know, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Unsatisfactory job observation report, and then further in the sentence, it says job observation record. Are those two different things?
They are.
Okay, just checking.
So the job observation report is that form
Yep.
that we had with that policy where I give you an unfavorable or a favorable job observation report. The job observation record is in the supervisory folder where the supervisor sits down and says, I spoke to you about being late, initial here.
Yep.
They may not get a job observation report, but they're documented on the job observation record.
Cool.
Nice. Anything else? I had a question on C, the only bullet point there. It says, now, if I remember correctly, the JORs can be also, hey, you've done superlative job the last 3 days. And so, of course, my mind goes to any patterns discovered, positive patterns. And I think that's also important to be brought to the attention of the chief. And I guess I like that can be used again in positive way and in not a disciplinary way, but a way to make sure that they're getting the job done the way that you want it to be done. So I like that. Going to number 3, the investigator's responsibilities, and got that answered already. So if there's nothing under 3, we'll go to 4, reviewed by the chief. Number 5. Number 6. So the deputy chief has 30 days to do the evaluation of the performance monitoring system.
So it doesn't end.
Mhm.
That's it. So again, no substantial changes. I would entertain a motion to approve. Okay, so the motion and second is to approve the performance monitoring system policy. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And it is unanimous. One more, the written directive system.
Can you explain this a little bit? I had a hard time following. Exactly.
Directive system.
Yeah.
So all these policies that we're approving
Oh,
is,
okay.
it's the policy system. So basically it says,
Well, it
The
didn't.
system for the system.
for instance,
Directive order.
I just issued a directive to the folks
Okay,
that it wasn't a policy. I just issued a directive about idling of cruisers.
okay,
And I said, you know, you can't just let the cruisers sit and idle if you're on call, you have to shut them off because it wastes fuel. That is a directive. These are policies, that's directive. So this explains what a directive is, what a policy is, and the whole system that we use. And it'll answer the counselor's question on where do you get the numbers from.
There you go.
So you've got operational procedures, you got administrative procedures, you got conduct and responsibility procedures, and they all have a certain number. And it's just easier to track. And subsequently, any form that comes out will have a number that if a form belongs to like the job observation report, the forms will be numbered eventually, so everything connects with it.
So the policy itself says the chief of police has the sole authority to revise, rescind, or issue the contents of the Berry City Police Department manual. Council has no authority.
They do.
Okay.
And it's in the charter. This is for the folks here. Like a sergeant can't go and rescind something. That's what that's stating.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
is it like, are there different levels of authority to be able to do that in the system? Or not?
In the actual Power DMS
Yeah.
system? Oh, yes. But this is just saying that, you know, a sergeant can't say, well, this is the policy that I'm instituting.
Policy is I worked till noon today. Here's the directive. So then one is the authority. Talks about the deputy chief.
Mhm.
Questions? Number two, the written directive system.
There you go.
There's your manual sections. Conduct and responsibility, letter B.
Well, can I make recommendations to your numbering system? No, I'm
Sure.
kidding. I'm kidding.
C, procedures, operations, and systems. Special orders and memoranda, letter D. So where would, if the pandemic springs anew and the council decides that people are going to wear masks in city-owned buildings, that decree would come from council or manager or both. And then would you need to send that out as a, would it be a memoranda at that point from you or a directive?
Yep.
So then that would
I
be
would take that.
reinforced
Yep.
by you passing that on, okay?
And is it like an electronic system, like they? How do they get those messages?
They would get them an email, but it would also be posted up into Power DMS. You'd put up the special order, like, for instance, you could put special order, if it's the first one of 22, you put special order 22-01, you know, because of the pandemic. This is what we're doing.
But they could access this.
Yep, they can access it even on their phone, on Power DMS.
That's
on
what
their
I'm
phone.
thinking,
I'll just note that for technological reasons, the city council can't even get our emails on our phone. So I just like that the police department can get all of Power DMS, but we
Yeah,
can't
so
figure out how to
the-
make
the
Outlook
idea
work
is
on
if-
our phones.
If you pull up on scene and you're the supervisor and you have a question.
Yeah, right.
It's covered in policy, you can
Right,
pull
you
out
can
your
pull it.
phone.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of the indexing, where you see at the bottom of everything that's
Mhm.
indexed.
Yeah.
They can just type in an indexing queue and it'll bring them right to that policy. or every
That's awesome.
policy That speaks to that.
That's great. Sorry, I lost track of where we were. I think we're under special orders and
Special
memoranda.
orders and memoranda.
So the last letter C underneath that. Skip pages. I'm sorry, I went from page 3, I guess. Sorry, and I had flipped to 4. I had it backwards. I did have a question. Maintained with related directive in this section or special operation procedure manual.
Where are you?
I'm
D, special
on-
orders, the
Yeah.
second bullet
Yes.
point.
Yeah,
Oh, I got it.
chain of command and maintain, so the special operational procedure manual. Is that something that houses all of this stuff, or is that something else that we're gonna have to look at? I don't think I'd seen special operational procedure manual before.
It says above that, it's C, these directives are maintained in the administrative, personnel, operational, traffic, investigative, field reporting, and special operations sections.
Of the
of
police
the
department manual.
manuals.
Okay.
That I actually did get. I was like, reading this whole thing, I'm like, directives, all I can think of is telling people what to do.
I'm still not seeing where you are.
Under letter D, special orders memoranda, and it starts here, and what I had highlighted was over here, maintained with the related
Okay.
directive, the section,
Okay, I see.
special operational procedure manual.
And it was on the next page
Yeah.
of mine. I'm sorry. A copy of the memorandum before to the chain of chief police maintained in the related section. Yes,
Okay.
that is this system.
Number 3, format of written directives. 4, which is the development of written directives. When you refer to staffed out,
So hypothetically speaking, if I were to write a traffic procedure and our traffic safety supervisor was the expert on that, I would staff it out to him to say, write a policy on.
this
Yes.
particular item,
And then
okay,
it would go through the review saying, okay, this makes sense type thing, and this is how. we're doing it.
okay. I hadn't seen that usage before, so I wasn't sure what that meant, okay. So that's A. B is office memoranda. Anything there? C, periodic review.
When are the labor agreements renegotiated? Is it every 3 years or?
Well, it
2 years,
depends.
or-
If they sign a 3-year contract, then it'd be 3 years. If they
That's
settle
what
on a
it
2-year
says.
contract,
Then that's
it'd be
what
2
it is.
years.
2 years left. I
It
think
expires in June 30th of 2024.
2024, right? Yep.
Trust me, I'd like to change a lot earlier, but
Oh, chief, I cannot wait.
some of those things drive me nuts. Unions are great, but unions are, they can make your head.
Unions.
Unions.
So
No further comment.
second bullet point on a periodic review. So that to me, that sounds like, I'll pick on Randy, Sergeant Tucker could say, hey, I got your directive, or this directive was here. And it says, and forward any changes or corrections to the chief. To me, that sounds like they're making the change
They're
and
not.
forwarding it to you. They're just
They're-
suggesting.
Yeah, like if they say, hey, we noticed on this policy, you realize this no longer applies because we don't have, for instance, we did away with those e-ticket printers and there's these different ones that we're using, so this doesn't apply. And it's like, oh yeah, we forgot that, then you have to update. the policy.
Okay. Any other questions under periodic review? Section 5, distribution of written directives. That's the end. It's the same as everywhere else.
Do we really have a hard copy of the manual
Hmm.
in the patrol area?
Once they're all done, yes.
Change them, update them.
So if we don't have any other questions on this, and again, there was nothing substantial that we changed. Sorry for all the questions on this one, Chief.
No worries.
Then I would entertain a motion that we approve the written directive system policy.
There you go.
Second that, Ed? All right. Motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. Chief, once again, tremendous work. Thanks for keeping us on our toes.
More next time.
Yay. And I mean that, yay. I really mean that.
As do I. We're getting some good work done.
Yeah, this is awesome.
One thing I forgot to mention in the chief's report. I know you have a gig going on September 22nd because you mentioned that. Was Steve going to, I hadn't heard back from him. Is he going to be available to do the Zoom meeting with me for the town of Essex, or city of Essex? I think. They changed. So they want to create a police advisory committee. They had put out asking if any other communities had them, and 3 of us had responded that we're going to help. So Bennington, myself, the other community,
St. Albans.
maybe St. Albans, that has advisory committees are gonna, it's a Zoom meeting, we're just gonna be there to speak of our experiences and what the committees are designed to do. And we asked the chair of the board, said you had a.
Yeah, and the latter one that night. I could ask the
Oh, damn,
boys
I
to
should
do
be
it without.
another one too. I love your music and I love their food, so.
I'll check with Steve.
Yeah.
And if he can't do it, I thought Steve was an appropriate, only because he's been on since the beginning as well, and we did have, there were a little bit of growing pains. Wasn't awful, but trying to get our charge written
Do we have,
and
do
get it
we,
approved.
do we have a written charge that, because I haven't been able to find it.
Yeah, we did. It exists somewhere. Carol, it might be in Steve's email, for God's sakes.
Because I
But
couldn't find it, and I asked Carol about it. And
so just to provide some background, for a long time, there was no formal capturing of most of the city committee's actual charge. The council had decided 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 3 years ago to create X body. And that was captured within the motion that was made to create the body, but it was never formally put together. One piece of paper, a cover sheet, this is what you're responsible for.
so the council gives the charge. This
Yes.
is what you're,
Yeah. And in the past couple years, the council's made a concerted effort to get each committee to submit a one pager as to what their charge is, because so many of these committees were created sort of off the cuff. The council, yes, ad hoc, the council said, okay, so we didn't give you and this is for all the committees across the board, everything from the dog park and the cemetery, which have been around forever, to the newer committees like this. So at one point, the council did a call to all the chairs to submit what their charges were, what they were working on, and the council made edits to those and then passed them. But all that is to say, I do not know where those
'Cause I couldn't
live.
find it. Carol couldn't find it for me either.
Carol couldn't either, okay.
I can certainly get it to you, chief. For some reason, I can't get into my
Do
Google
you have
Docs
it?
from here. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, if you have it,
There you
and you
go.
could email
Absolutely.
it to me, that would be great, so I
On
can.
the Website
I can-
either, so. I'd
Was it
love
on the
to-
website?
That's good to know.
It should be.
Yeah, no, all the committees should have them.
Yeah, because I went looking for it.
Did you
I
look
couldn't,
on the website?
what's that?
Did you look on
I
the
did.
website?
I
Okay.
couldn't find it.
I just want to make sure my memory
Yep.
serves me right.
I will bring that up to the city manager. And I will also call the former mayor and find out if he has any.
Well, you said you have it in Google Docs, right?
For this one, yeah, I'm just now thinking
Oh, for
more
everything.
broadly,
Okay,
like
all right.
whether it's this committee or the art committee, they all have them, so they should all be accessible.
Right.
Let's see. if I can open it. This is the the board. This is,
That's the original COAB.
yes, it is. I'll find it. Actually, March of 2021.
If you find it.
Sounds about
You
right.
can get it to me so I can speak to it at that meeting on the 22nd.
Yep.
September 22nd.
Yeah, it's next Thursday. I'll be in North Carolina, but I'm enjoying it soon.
Via Zoom, okay.
It was pretty short and sweet. It's a short paragraph, basically, that we work as to look at the policies, help the council, and provide good policing to the community, and but I can get that to you.
And if Steve's unavailable, I could probably attend to. Because we
Sure.
also went through a
Yes.
lot of conversations about exactly what the scope of the board was. And both what you can and cannot do, and also what we did and did not
Yes.
want to do. Nice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember the original intent was that we would have some oversight. I was very vocal that I didn't feel that was our position. That's council and manager. So anything else under miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous, chief. I would like to know if I could reschedule the other one for the earlier shift, and definitely a couple prior. Because that was just, yeah. It
Yeah,
would
just
be,
shoot me an email. And I'll
Yeah.
decide. Was it an eye opener sitting on the wall?
yes, it was, in so many ways of what, between what you have to go through and procedures and. It was very enlightening, and to listen to both of the officers talk to each individual, and you could tell, that they really were involved in the community, and they really had a care of the people, and you could just tell they like their job, especially I was impressed with both of them, but Sergeant Tucker. He's been around for a while, so I'm really impressed, and I feel very confident. Very police department, so I'm like grateful that I'm on this, board, because I wondered about, the police community was. Now I'm getting an inside look, so grateful. Impressed.
Anything else under miscellaneous? Then I would also entertain a motion to adjourn. Are you gonna second, Abby?
I enjoyed the second.
Okay, so that's non-debatable. All those in favor?
Bye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:24. Excellent work, folks. Thank you. Chief, always.
Always.